During an intense and high-octane police investigation that lasted 18 months, police uncovered a massive drug operation that was being led by Liverpool businessman Ian Spackman. Ian had lived the life most ordinary people could not afford, people could only dream of. He had regular vacations to exotic locations such as Thailand and Dubai. He'd purchased items like Rolex watches and even had signed England shirts framed and hung up in his gated home. His affluent and luxurious lifestyle was afforded to him because of drug money. Merseyside police officers were part of the Serious Crime Taskforce, and they says that Ian was in charge of a group of at least 26 dealers. Ian, along with his partners James Gannon and Tom Collins, ran the organised group. 37-year-old self-regarded businessman who is from Rosslyn Avenue in Maghill had been able to transport Class A and Class B substances across large parts of the UK. What he did was he created a number of shell companies on paper, and he made him and his business partners directors of the companies. Instead, Ian Spackman and his men were transporting white, H and also weed using official couriers under the guise of a plumbing company and cat litter company. Now, because Ian was a businessman, he made a conscious effort to remove himself from the mundane task of bickering and sending promises of violence to other dealers and gangs that were operating on his turf. Now, Ian was wholesale, an immovable force in the upper echelon of criminality. Plain and simple, he was not battling with gangsters with nicknames like Al Too Bad and Wazza. Ian was making so much money that during the investigation, police received intel that Ian had claimed that he had made roughly £80,000 in 48 hours. But the business was barely ticking over. He needed to move more products and make more money, so he decided to take advantage of the increase of drug users across northern England. Ian had taken a shipment of 200 kg of weed that was imported from the Netherlands and USA. That large shipment has successfully entered the UK and then made its way to lock up in a Liverpool industrial estate. Ian had then got his dealers to break up the packages and arrange for the wholesale of the product to reach its destination to places like Lancashire, Cumbria, Teesside, and even the Isle of Man. Because Ian was known as a businessman on paper, the fact that Ian had also sold multiple kilos of Class A on a most daily basis, police were able to establish a connection as to why dealers did not try to rob Ian. Effectively, Ian had a relationship with Liverpool's feared Fernhill gang that started its origins in Bootle. The Fernhill gang had been linked to dealing conspiracies, GBH, attempted M, and also firearms, and also smuggling mobile phones into jails across the UK, where they were establishing major drug networks. Now, police say the Fernhill gang had white and H rackets that were present up and down the country. In order to keep his drug empire away from the attention of the police, Ian Spackman and James Gannon and Tom Collins also used encrypted devices. They also had surveillance cameras set up outside their homes and the industrial estates that they had leased, and also the lockups. And they even had gang members outside just to watch what was going on and report back to the three men in charge. Now, these cameras were also able to be accessed remotely. Now, the three men were sophisticated, smart, ambitious, studious, and shrewd in their business endeavours. During the investigation, that involved plainclothes police officers, covert surveillance, and also taking witness statements from users and other dealers in the area. Merseyside Police says that the three men had imported millions of pounds worth of white and Class B into the UK via using their international connections. Drivers with all the correct documents, so the couriers, had transported the product into the UK. And in a separate plot involving Ian, James and Tom, again the three men registered a fake company at Company House. Under the guise of the fake business, P&M Plumbing, the gang took hold of a unit at the Bemrose Industrial Estate, which is off Long Lane. The rented unit was used for couriers to park their trailers and deliver at least 4 consignments of H and White, which had been driven from places like Barcelona and then delivered and dropped off in Liverpool. On the invoice documents, the vans were said to have been carrying toilets and also plumbing equipment. Now, the director and co-conspirator, Peter Milivanley, would appear in a shirt and tie and actually sign for the deliveries to try and give the transaction added legitimacy, and police actually saw this. The 4th delivery saw around 50 kg of weed being dropped off at that unit, which gave some indication to the huge scale of the operation. Now, some of that weed then formed part of another lucrative arm of the gang's operation, the dispatch of Class B dra to the Isle of Man. The Isle of Man was an ideal location for the dealers because they could command way more money. It had a higher street value than mainland UK, and the item was actually smuggled in special compartments built into the van floor. Again, when police investigated Ian and his men, they said that from Liverpool, the tentacles of the organisation reached out around the northern part of England, but also even internationally. Liverpool was the hub, and Class A and Class B dra were supplied to locations throughout, which netted the OCGs millions of pounds. And there was no way that police were going to let Ian and James and Tom's brazen antics continue, because despite the efforts that the gang went through with their own surveillance teams, their own remote cameras, and also trying to distance themselves from street-level antics, the police were monitoring the movements of the Class A and Class B, and also the millions of pounds of cash that had been transported from Liverpool to across the UK. James's holidays and Ian's holidays and Tom's holidays were checked. The designer gears its members flaunted were checked, and the value of the items were also checked too. And around 200 potential supply trips were tracked by investigators, who watched as Class A flowed across the north from Liverpool, with cash moving in the opposite direction. Police say that over the course of the police investigation that lasted 18 months, anywhere between 20 to 100 kg of Class A white and around 200 kg of weed is thought to have passed through the gang's hands. These figures do not include the items thought to have been supplied to Merseyside gangs. When police busted the gang, what they did is they first went to the property of Mark Campbell, and that property was in Thornton. Police had used armoured Land Rovers to smash through the gates and gain entry. Now, with Ian's luxurious maghill property, it was also raided by armed officers, and it led to Ian Spackman and also associates with Liam Johnson and Kyle Shields being arrested too. When Ian's home was raided, he lost his BMW X5, all his furniture, his gym equipment, his signed football t-shirts and designer wardrobe, and also Rolex watches. Police were so savage that when Ian Spackman, who's 37 years old, was arrested, they did not wait until the court case had finished. They had proceeded with Pocker and actually started to take his items and his cash. Now, Ian Spackman was actually jailed for 17 years and 4 months, and he was out and out the head of the organised crime group, and he operated on a commercial scale. James Gannon, who's 35 years old, of Sunbury Road in Liverpool, he was the person that managed the movement of the Class A and Class B, and he was jailed for 22 years. Now, 34-year-old Tom Collins of Higher Lane was third in charge, and he was jailed for 16 years. Now, regarding 41-year-old Mark Campbell of Ince Road, Thornton, he was instrumental in the Liverpool side of the business. And of course, remember, police had taken an armoured car and smashed through the gates of his property. He was jailed for 14 years. Remember, Ian Spackman had employed at least 26 dealers in order to run a successful drug operation. But again, these can only last for a certain time. Police will let you think that you have the upper hand while they build a steady case on you. And then when you least expect it and you get complacent, that's when they will strike. Does the crime match the sentence? Let me know. Stay safe.